Hey guys, it's Cyze. Just before we jump into some Mythic Plus on the Dragonflight beta, I thought I'd just show you the talent tree and just go through what I've picked and some of the decision making that goes behind it. So, first of all, what you'll probably notice is that I haven't took Mind Spike in this build. In Mythic Plus, and even more so the higher the scaling goes, and the more health the mobs have, the longer they live for, Void Eruption does become more and more useful in the fact that you can consistently refresh your dots without having to think too much about when am I going to use Dark Ascension and get my Mind Seers in. So Void Eruption helps you maintain your dot for a long period of time, which over the course of a trash pack in a high Mythic Plus keystone where the trash can be living for upwards of a minute, it's extremely nice because you're in combat for that minute and then it's halfway back off cooldown, and by the time you've pulled the next pack you've got it back again and you can use it on that pack as well. So having Void Eruption already makes the spec feel a little bit bloated if you were to take Mind Spike as well. You're completely negating that by not taking Mind Spike. You don't have to worry about the extra ability, you don't have to worry about min-maxing your Surge of Darkness procs, you don't have to worry about Mind Melt, you just fully put yourself into dotting up, maintaining them at Void Bolt through Void Eruption, and then you're focusing on Mind Seer. And you can see on the left hand side I've went down, I've picked up Coalescent Shadows and Puppet Master, primarily just because we are going to be playing Mindbender and Inescapable Torment. Not too fussed on Idolive Shiraj, although you can use it, because when you pull a boss in Mythic Plus at the minute, Idolive Yogg-Sothoth actually resets. But I'm going to keep testing it for now. I do think it's still useful in the trash packs itself. But as you can see as well, I've gone down the right hand side and I've picked up Psychic Link, Encroaching Shadows, as well as Mind Devourer, because they both buff Mind Seer. It's 20% on Mind Seer, and then it has a 20% chance to make it cost no insanity. And again, down the right hand side, Insidious Ire, while you have your dots up on the same target, Mind Blast is 40% more damage. This links in really well with Psychic Link, as it does affect the Mind Blast damage on that as well. And Idolive Shiraj, still not too sure about this one, since they have nerfed Echo and Void quite a lot. So they've target capped it, they've reduced the damage it does by 60%, and they think that it's justifiable by making it proc when a mob dies. I'm not sure what the thought process was behind that, but this is the build that I'm doing for the Mythic Plus runs that you're going to see up on the channel over the weekend. I hope it makes sense as to why I've picked some of these abilities. Quite a few of them are self-explanatory. You're not going to be standing still for long enough to want to take Mindflay Insanity. There's an argument to be made for Death Speaker, considering you're playing Mindbender, and you maybe want to be able to get the extra Shadow Air Death Cells. But we're going to have to wait and see. We already have Inescapable Torment, and with the double Mind Blast stacks that you're going to have with Void Eruption, you're going to have enough abilities to cast anyway. And on top of that, you do have your Shadow Crash, which applies Vampiric Touch and Shadow Air Pain to 8 targets. Again, with the little interaction with the Misery there. It's going to be fun. I do think we're going to have a lot of burst damage, and depending on how high the keys go, we'll also have a lot of sustain in a fortified setting as well. Hope this made sense. Let's get into the video. So the plan was originally for me to use the audio from my stream as I stream some of these Mythic Plus dungeons, but the chat was talking about things that weren't necessarily related to Shadow Priest. We had discussions about other classes, other specs, Blizzard and Tune, and how they choose how to tune, and I just thought you guys wouldn't really appreciate the waffle that goes on my stream. So I thought I'd just do a voiceover instead again, just going through some of the packs, explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing, what buttons I'm using, how I set up for a pack, and how I was using my cooldowns. I will say, it's not a fortified dungeon, they didn't put the fortified affix on, it was just thundering. But looking at this pull, I go in, I know the tank's going to be pulling a decent amount of mobs, so I put my Shadow Crash down where most of the mobs are joined up. Shadow Crash applies when it lands, not when it's cast, so as long as you know mobs are going to be running in, you're fine. I PI'd the Mage, mainly just because when you're playing Twins of the Sun Priestess, you just want PI on 2 people. So, looking as well, I did use my Mindbender. I was making sure to Void Eruption after I had used my 2 Mind Blasts, because you get a reset on the 2 stacks. back to back with Shadow Word Death. You wanted that big unload of Shadow Flame Prism. It's been renamed in the talent tree, but it is still Shadow Flame Prism. So going forward as well, Halo was doing a big chunk of damage, and they've taken away the further you are away, the more damage it does, and it doesn't pull in dungeons anymore. It doesn't pull targets that aren't in combat, which is huge. It means that you're more likely to take it now instead of instead of Divine Star. And it is really nice to press. It's really nice to see it. So, seeing that the big target was pulled into the pack that was already there, I was using my 3 Mind Seers on Mind Seer, and I was using Devouring Plague just to dump Insanity when I could. It was nice to have a priority target, knowing that I can throw Insanity into it and make sure that it's still going to be brought down in a timely fashion. Vampiric Embrace was used a lot in this dungeon, not because the healer was struggling, but just because there was times where it was needed and the tank pulled and the healer hadn't had time to recover from the previous pull. You can see as well, it does a noticeable amount of healing, but I digress. I tried to set up the pulls in this. It's hard when you're not on comms with a tank, but I tried to set up the pulls so that I would have Void Eruption and Shadow Crash for one of the pulls, and then I would try to have Mindbender as well for the next one, mainly just to make use of the Puppet Master talent and making sure that I'm getting those Coalescent Shadows for the critical strikes on Mind Blast. Bearing in mind, I am playing Psychic Link, so the extra Mind Blast crits from Puppet Master and Coalescent Shadows are doing a lot of damage, especially when it's in a pack like this, with there's multiple targets, they're all within 40 yards. It's nice condensed damage, especially when you're getting that priority damage as well, which was on this Defiler, the big guy. So, you may notice the single target damage on the bosses is a little bit lower than what you'd like. It really just depends on how you go into the fight. If you have all your cooldowns up, you will notice that you're bursting the same as others, you maintain the same as others. But if you pull a boss and you don't have Mindbender or PI, it's going to be rough, regardless of how you look at it. It doesn't matter how good Shadow looks in AoE. The specific talent build that I've gone, you lose out on a lot of boss damage by not taking Mind Spike, but you've just got too many buttons, especially if you're playing Void Eruption. So expect boss damage to be a little bit on the lower side if you don't have cooldowns going in. I was quite lucky, I had all my cooldowns going into this one. So you'll see me open with my debuffs and Void Eruption on the boss. You could have saved it for the whelps, but in my mind I was like, you know, you've got Shadow Crash for the whelps, you're going to have your Mind Seer, maybe you'll have a Mind Seer proc that just lets you go back to back. I just wasn't willing to risk not having Shadow Crash up for the ads. So you see me pre-casting it where they're going to land, straight into a Mind Seer. And I was praying for a Mind Seer proc here, but I just didn't get one. But this is generally how the dungeon went. You know, the tank was doing decent sized pulls. I think he wanted to test what he could do as well. And it was fun to see Shadow doing the numbers that it was doing. I'm not saying it's amazing. I'm not saying it's S tier at all, because it's not. It still has some issues that it needs resolved. But in the grand scheme of things, providing you're on comms with a tank and a healer and a team, I think Shadow can pull some pretty decent numbers. You know, it's sad not having Echo and Void being top damage anymore, but that was never going to last for long, right? Like, you can't have a talent doing top damage, especially when you've got so many buttons to press as Priest as well. It just doesn't feel nice. And you can see my damage here spiking quite high. It is all just pad. You know, you have the argument of the ads need to die, it's not pad, but I was using all my Insanity on Mind Seer. I don't think I DP'd the boss until the ads were dead. But I will say as well, one of the main things that I tried to min-max in this dungeon, especially just to squeeze out that little bit of extra damage, was trying to make sure that I was having 2 stacks of Mind Blast, spending them, Void Eruption, Shadow Word Death, and then Mind Blasts again. So that way you're getting 4 Mind Blasts and a Shadow Word Death off in the first 5 GCDs of having your Mind Bender up. it's a lot of free damage on the Shadow Flame Prism. It's noticeable, and it's burst damage, so you know, when you first go into a pack, you have Vampiric Embrace up, because I generally use it at the start of a pack just to make sure that everybody's healthy, and all that damage is getting converted into healing as well. It's a lot of damage, it's a lot of healing. The utility is insane, and especially going into Vault of the Incarnate, there's quite a few bosses that have ad profiles like dungeons, so you're able to get quite a bit of raid healing up, just to make sure everybody's safe. You know, you're giving your healers a break at the start of a fight, you know, they can do some damage. Going into Mythic Progress, it's quite important that your healers can do damage as well. But with that team, I think I've explained most of my thought processes for the dungeon. What I'll do is, I will leave the dungeon to run, I will come back at the end of the dungeon, and we'll have a little overview with the damage breakdown, just on details, because I did try logging these dungeons, but they seem a bit buggy, so the logs aren't always picking up every single trash fight, it's not splitting the bosses, so we'll just have to make do with details for the time being. But with that, enjoy the rest of the dungeon, and I'll see you at the end.
disaster, a reckoning. You wonder how I got this way. You think I'm someone to be saved, someone to clean up and tame. Oh, some things never change, never change. Oh, you think I would look pretty on your arm once you cover up my bruises and battle scars, but it always ends the same. Can't bear the things I've had to face, got you crying on your knees in pain. Oh, some things never change, never change. Oh, you'll break your back to make me feel.
So just coming up to the end of the dungeon, I thought I'd pop in just before we do the little damage breakdown and just say all of this content that I put up on YouTube is streamed on my Twitch. I'll put it in the description below. It'd mean a lot to me if you'd just be able to pop in and even just give it a follow. And the same for this video. You know, I'm trying to grow the channel. I'm trying to actually put out content that people like and educate people. And a like and a comment and a subscribe does the world of difference, you know. It sounds silly and I know all YouTubers say it, but it actually helps more than what you'd know. But looking at the damage breakdown, this is the boss one. It's going to go on to all of it all now. Mindseer, not that many casts, but for the damage that it did, I think it would obviously be higher if the tank pulled more and the packs were stacked a little bit nicer, maybe with a Death Knight. You can see on the damage meter, Echo and Void is still up there in terms of damage. The bigger the packs, the more damage it's going to do. And the same for Shadow Flame Prism. Could have been maxed it a bit more, but it's still good. But Shadow, it felt nice in this dungeon with the changes. Still subject to change. I'm going to be doing more keys and uploading more videos. But with that, team, drop a comment down below if there's any questions. And thank you for watching.